This two-part series was inspired by a Twitter thread entitled How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky, which summarizes Naval Ravikant's unique philosophy on ethical wealth creation. This video was also inspired by Eric Jorgenson's must-read book, The Almanack of Naval Ravikant, which compiles Naval's best ideas from blog posts, interviews, tweets, and podcasts. In part 1 of this summary, we explored Naval's early years and the core components of his income formula, namely specific knowledge, leverage, and accountability. In part 2, we will look at a few other key elements of Naval's philosophy on ethical wealth creation. We'll explore his formula for happiness, and we'll consider whether it's possible for a self-described rational Buddhist, like Naval, to reconcile the contradiction between his pursuit of material wealth and the Buddhist imperative to eliminate egoistic desire. What metrics do you use when deciding which activities are worth pursuing? For Naval, the key metric is time.
So always factor your time into every decision. How much time does it take? Oh, it's going to take me an hour to get across town to get this thing. Well, I value myself at $100 an hour. That's basically throwing $100 out of my pocket. Am I going to do that?
To evaluate the opportunity cost of various activities from a time management perspective, he recommends setting an absurdly high, aspirational personal hourly rate.
So set a very high hourly aspirational rate for yourself and stick to it. And it should seem and feel absurdly high. If it doesn't, it's not high enough. And whatever you picked, my advice to you would be raise it.
Before Naval became wealthy, his aspirational rate was the absurdly high figure of $5,000 per hour. He used this figure as a guideline for determining which tasks or activities were worth his time, and he outsourced or abandoned anything that could be done for less than his hourly rate.
If you can outsource something or not do something for less than your hourly rate, outsource it or don't do it. So if you can hire someone to do it for less than your hourly rate, hire them.
Once you've prioritized the highest value activities, and you've outsourced or abandoned the rest, knuckle down and work as hard as you can.
If getting wealthy is your goal, you are going to have to work as hard as you can. But hard work is absolutely no substitute for who you work with and what you work on. What you work on is probably the most important thing.
Because productivity and mental clarity diminish beyond a certain point, Naval recommends working in a series of sprints interspersed with rest periods.
Nobody really works 80 to 120 hours a week sustained at high output with mental clarity. Your brain breaks down. You just won't have good ideas. So really the way people tend to work most effectively, especially in knowledge work, is they sprint as hard as they can while they're working on something and they're inspired and they're passionate. And then they rest, they take long breaks.
What is good judgment, and how do you know if you have it? For starters, good judgment requires wisdom.
My definition of wisdom is knowing the long-term consequences of your actions.
He also defines wisdom as discarding vices and returning to virtue by way of knowledge. Judgment involves combining these discrete aspects of wisdom, discarding vices, and contemplating the long-term consequences of your actions, and applying the results to external problems.
Wisdom applied to external problems, I think, is judgment. So they're highly linked. But yes, it's knowing the long-term consequences of your actions and then making kind of the right decision to capitalize on that.
Because emotions can cloud perception and lead to poor decision-making, Naval says the best judgment is often exercised by the least emotional people. If you want to enhance your judgment, consider studying philosophy to better understand the methods employed by the ancients to foster emotional detachment.
And the thing that prevents you from seeing what's actually happening are your emotions. Our emotions are constantly clouding our judgment. And in investing or in running companies or in building products or being an entrepreneur, emotions really get in the way. Emotions are what prevent you from seeing what's actually happening until you can no longer resist the truth of what's happening, until it becomes too sudden and then you're forced into suffering, which is sort of a breaking of this emotional fantasy that you had put together.
Because it's difficult to develop good judgment without real-world experience, Naval has great respect for the opinions of those with skin in the game.
Judgment is very hard to build up. This is where both intellect and experience come in play. There are many problems with the so-called intellectuals in the ivory tower, but one of the reasons why Nassim Taleb rails against them is because they have no skin in the game. They have no real world experience, right? So they just apply purely intellect. And intellect without any experience is often worse than useless, because you get the confidence that the intellect gives you and you get some of the credibility. But because you had no skin in the game and you had no real experience and no real accountability, you're just throwing darts. The real world is always far, far more complex than we can intellectualize. And especially all the interesting, fast-moving edge domains and problems, you can't get there without experience.
In his book, Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell famously opined that mastery of a skill requires 10,000 hours of practice. In Naval's view, true expertise comes from repeated attempts and failures. In other words, taking 10,000 tries at something is more important than putting 10,000 hours into something.
It's like Bruce Lee said, I don't fear the man who knows 1,000 kicks and 1,000 punches. I fear the man who's practiced one punch 10,000 times.
Naval suggests finding 3 hobbies, one that makes you rich, one that keeps you fit, and one that makes you smarter.
Making money should be a function of your identity and what you like to do. Another tweet that I really liked was, this was not mine, somebody else put this up. They said, find 3 hobbies, one that makes you money, one that keeps you fit, and one that makes you creative. I would change that slightly. So I would say one that makes you money, one that makes you fit, and one that makes you smarter.
The best hobby you can adopt to become smarter is simply to read more.
Read what you love until you love to read. It's that simple. Everybody I know who reads a lot loves to read, and they love to read because they read books that they loved. It's a little bit of a catch-22, but you basically want to start off just reading wherever you are and then keep building up from there until reading becomes a habit. And then eventually you will just get bored of the simple stuff. So you may start off reading fiction, then you might graduate to science fiction, then you may graduate to nonfiction, then you may graduate to science or philosophy or mathematics or whatever it is. But take your natural path and just read the things that interest you until you kind of understand them. And then you'll naturally move to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing.
Time is your most valuable asset, and a productive use of your precious time is mastering foundational concepts in microeconomics, persuasion, ethics, logic, and mathematics.
So it is important that you read foundational things. And foundational things, I would say, are the original books in a given field that are very scientific in their nature. So, for example, instead of reading a business book, pick up Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. Instead of reading a book on biology or evolution that's written today, I would pick up Darwin's Origin of the Species. If you understand the basics, especially in mathematics and physics and sciences, then you will not be afraid of any book.
Be skeptical of anyone who claims to be an authority on business.
Some of the stuff that's taught in business school is essentially just anecdotes. They call it case studies, but it's just anecdotes. And they're trying to help you pattern match by throwing lots of data points at you. But the reality is you'll never understand them fully until you're actually in that position yourself. Even then, you will find that basic concepts from game theory and psychology and ethics and mathematics and computers and logic will serve you much, much better.
Naval emphasizes the value of deep, slow reading over a superficial consumption of information, claiming it's better to thoroughly understand and internalize the concepts from a single book than to skim through many. Some may define happiness as joy or bliss. Others may define it as a feeling of satisfaction or pleasure. Without a shared understanding of what it means to be happy, it's impossible to say what you should be doing to become happier. So let's start by clarifying what happiness does not mean. Happiness does not mean being rich, nor does it mean being free. It's possible to be both rich and miserable and free and miserable. Another thing happiness does not mean is success. So if happiness is neither wealth nor freedom nor success, what is it? Naval describes happiness in a few different ways.
Happiness is, it's really a default state. It's what's there when you remove the sense that something is missing in your life. And we are highly judgmental survival and replication machines. We're constantly walking around thinking, I need this, I need that, trapped in a web of desires. And happiness is that state when nothing is missing. And when nothing is missing, your mind shuts down. And your mind stops running into the future or running into the past to regret something or to plan something. And then in that absence for a moment, you have internal silence And when you have internal silence, then you are content and you're happy.
Happiness is also the absence of desire for external things.
To me, happiness is not about positive thoughts. It's not about negative thoughts. It's about the absence of desire, especially the absence of desire for external things. And so the fewer desires I can have, the happier I can, or the more I can accept the current state of things, the less my mind is moving, because the mind really exists in motion towards the future or the past. The more present I am, the happier and more content I will be. I try not to have more than one big desire in my life at any given time. And I also recognize that as the axis of my suffering. I realize that that's where I've chosen to be unhappy.
Naval equates happiness with peace.
When I say happiness, I mean peace. A lot of people, when they say happiness, they mean joy or bliss, but I'll take peace.
Happiness is both a choice you make and a skill you develop.
The first step towards increasing the level of happiness in your life is realizing that you can. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. For the vast majority of people, some amount of their happiness, in fact, probably a lot more than they think, is in their control. It's very hard for me to change my athletic performance purely through working out. I'm going to be genetically much more limited. But I think in terms of my mood and temperament and my outlook on life, am I a peaceful person or not? How angry do I get? These things are much more malleable. The most important trick, I think, to being happy is to realize that happiness is a skill that you develop and a choice that you make. You choose to be happy and then you work at it. It's just like building muscles. It's just like losing weight. It's just like succeeding at your job. It's just like learning calculus. You decide it's important to you. You prioritize it above everything else. You read everything on the topic and then you work at it.
When you desire something, you suffer in its absence and commit to being unhappy until you get it. By recognizing that desire is the source of your suffering, you can become more mindful of your desires and their effect on your well-being.
One message that really stuck with me when I figured this out was that what is desire? And desire is a contract you make with yourself to be unhappy until you get what you want. And I don't think most of us realize that's what it is. I think we go about desiring things all day long and then wondering why we're unhappy. So I like to stay aware of that because then I can choose my desires very carefully.
A few strategies Naval favors for cultivating happiness are meditation, reading philosophy, surrounding himself with happy people, and valuing his time on earth. In his pared-down version of the Serenity Prayer, Naval says you have 3 choices in any given situation. You can change it, accept it, or leave it. To attain greater contentment and inner peace, Naval recommends cultivating indifference to things outside your control. Above all, he says real happiness stems from acceptance and peace rather than attempts to change your external circumstances. When Naval urges you to save yourself, he means you must take responsibility for your physical and mental health. Health figures prominently in Naval's philosophy, earning top spot in his happiness formula. So what's the rationale for making health his top priority? Each time you board a commercial flight, you get the stock standard pre-departure safety spiel from the flight attendants. After explaining how to fasten your seatbelt and locate the emergency exits, they remind you to put on your own oxygen mask before assisting someone else with theirs. Why? Because if you can't breathe, you'll be unable to save anyone else, much less yourself. Just as you must prioritize your own survival mid-air, you must prioritize your survival in life. And prioritizing your survival means putting your physical health above everything else.
Physical health, of course, is the foundation of everything. If you don't have your physical health, you have nothing. Another great Confucius saying that I liked was that a sick man only wants one thing. A healthy man wants 10,000 things. When you're sick, when you're down, all your other desires run away. Without the ability to get up and function, you can't turn into this desiring machine that you are.
Naval says his morning workout has been a game changer that has made him feel healthier and younger. The world could be imploding or melting down, and it doesn't matter. He refuses to start his day until his workout is finished. Health is his number one priority.
The daily morning workout has been a complete game changer. It's made me feel healthier, younger. It's made me not go out late. And it came from one simple thing, which is everybody says, I don't have time. It's just another way of saying it's not a priority. So what you really have to do is to say, is it a priority or not? So what I did there was I basically just said, My number one priority in life, above my happiness, above my family, above my work, is my own health. So in the mornings, I just work out, and however long it takes is how long it takes. And I do not start my day, and I don't care if the world is imploding and melting down. It can wait another 30 minutes until I'm done working out.
Not only must you nurture your physical health, you must nurture your mental health by freeing yourself from the obligation to live up to the expectations of others. It takes courage to stop caring what other people think.
Don't spend your time making other people happy. Other people being happy is their problem. It's not your problem. If you are happy, it makes other people happy. If you are happy, other people will ask you how you're happy and they might learn from it. But you are not responsible for making other people happy.
An excellent tool for self-discovery and personal growth is meditation. When approached with mindfulness and intention, even mundane activities like hiking, praying, and showering can serve as forms of meditation. Ultimately, Naval sees meditation as a way to disconnect from outside influences. No need to overcomplicate things. Simply seek refuge in the space between your thoughts. At the beginning of this video, I asked whether it was possible to reconcile the contradiction between Naval's pursuit of material wealth and the Buddhist imperative to eliminate egoistic desire. Naval reconciles the two by alluding to the possibility of pursuing wealth without desiring it.
Money is not the root of all evil. There's nothing evil about it. But the lust for money is bad. And it's not bad in a social sense. It's not bad in the sense of like you're a bad person to others for lusting for money. It's bad for you. And the reason it's bad for you is because it's a bottomless pit. It will always occupy your mind. So to make money, you have to love money. And if you love money and you make it, there's never enough. There is never enough because that desire, when it's turned on, doesn't turn off at some number.
In time, when you're at the stage where you're pursuing your passion and doing the things you're specifically wired to do, you'll find that money is no longer the object of the enterprise, but merely an afterthought.
My art is I create businesses. I can create a new business within 3 months and raise the money and assemble a team and get it launched. And it's fun for me. It's really cool to see what can I put together. And it makes money as a side effect because that's the game that I became good at.
To reduce the amount of suffering you're likely to endure over the course of your lifetime, try to be more selective about your desires, particularly by not having more than one big desire at any given time.
It's your unlimited desires that are clouding your peace, your happiness. This is the oldest, most trite wisdom. Desire is suffering. That's what it means, right? Every desire you have is an axis where you will suffer. So just don't focus on more than one desire at a time. The universe is rigged in such a way that if you just want one thing and you focus on that, you'll get it. But everything else, you gotta let go.
The last line of Naval's tweet storm reads, "When you're finally wealthy, you'll realize that it wasn't what you were seeking in the first place." Though it doesn't add substantively to the preceding tweets, this is perhaps Naval's most essential, as it gets to the heart of his philosophy. Yes, wealth is important. It produces money while you sleep. But the pursuit of wealth, the act of seeking it in the first place, is where most people get hung up.
You're around for 50, 70, 100 years. It's a blink of a firefly in the night, one time, right? You're just barely here. So you got to make the most of every minute, which doesn't mean that you chase some stupid desire for your entire life. What it means is that like every second that you have on this planet, it's very precious, and it's your responsibility to make sure that you're happy and you're interpreting everything in the best possible way.
If, in pursuing wealth, you find yourself lusting for money, trapped in a bottomless pit of always wanting more, eventually you'll find that life has passed you by like a firefly that blinks once in a night, and you'll have missed out on all the things that make life worth living: health, love, and your mission. Insofar as money can buy your freedom and bring you peace, it can indirectly contribute to your happiness. But no amount of money can buy happiness, so the sooner you can figure out how to cultivate inner peace, the better. The fundamental delusion that afflicts humanity is the notion that some elusive thing exists out there which, if you manage to find it, will keep you happy and fulfilled forever.
Even though you can certainly achieve happiness and mental health without financial health, The truth is, in modern society, most of us understand that financial wealth can give us freedom. It can give us time. It can give us peace. You're not going to buy your way to happiness, but you will buy your way out of common causes of unhappiness.
At the end of the day, true wealth lies in cultivating those things that must be earned rather than bought: physical health, inner peace, and loving relationships.